Wonderful people of the internet, and as always, some of you horrible ones as well. Welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Lab, episode number 10. I believe there will come a point where I forget I forget what episode we're on, and I'll no longer be titling them. But welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Lab. I am a little bit nervous about this one. Um, Now, I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous because this is something that I've talked about before, but something that I don't often talk about enough, I don't think, and that is my mental health. Now, this is something that I've spoke about on my social media already, but obviously the podcast is an opportunity for me to kind of go into a little bit more details about things. So because I don't kind of really know how this will go, I do just want to put a little bit of a mental health trigger warning on this, and that if you are someone who's kind of suffering from your own mental health, please do not. This is very easy to say, and almost too easy to say, but do not struggle in silence. It's it's easy to say, but to actually reach out about your mental health is another thing, and I can totally appreciate that. So if you're someone who's in that position, and you want to send me a message, send a loved one a message, just let me know how you're feeling. My messages are always open because same. That's why I'm here. So obviously why I'm here is to talk about my mental health. And whilst again I have talked about this on social media before, but probably nowhere near as much as maybe I should. And what I think the reason for that is because whilst I do not think there is a stigma surrounding mental health the way that there used to be, I think people can talk a lot more openly about their mental health nowadays. I suppose the reason that I have never talked about it more than I feel like I should is because I suppose I've never, and maybe this isn't the right mindset to have, is that I don't ever want I don't ever want anyone to think that because I suffer from depression and because I suffer from poor mental health a lot more often than what I want to admit, that I'm not very good at my job, and that I can't help someone achieve a life-changing result when it comes to their exercise and their nutrition and everything that goes into that. And that's, to be honest, really, rightly or wrongly, predominantly wrongly, and I know that a lot of people will let me know this, that's probably why I haven't spoke about it as much as I have done, or as much as I probably should, is because I have never wanted to be I've never wanted to be the coach who has he's always talking about his mental health and nothing else. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't know why that was so difficult to mention, but yeah, I've never wanted to be the coach or be the person who's always at the forefront talking about how poor his mental health is, etc., because I strongly believe that by being a human being, you're going to have bad days, some really really shit days, and I think sometimes what I don't do is I don't give myself the grace. I don't give myself the opportunity to accept that how I'm feeling is because of how poor my mental health can get. I do always just try to brush it off and just keep going, because I'm very much one of those sorts of people who believes that I can action my way out of this. And whilst I do think that that is quite important, and for the most part will see you through, I hold on very, very tightly to that notion sometimes and don't give myself the space, the grace, whatever you want to call it, to sit and feel my feelings through probably the way that I should. So I suppose kind of with this episode, that is what I'm learning to do, or that is what I am trying to be better at doing. So as a lot of you will have seen, maybe some of you won't have seen, I put up a post. I put up a post last Monday. Today is Tuesday, so not yesterday, but the Monday before. Essentially talking about how when I woke up, I felt pretty shit. To be honest, I felt pretty horrible, and I essentially talked about how there were things that I was going to do to I was going to action to help me bring myself out of that feeling, essentially. And to cut a long story short, I never did anything. I never actioned anything that I put in that post. And by Friday, I felt fucking horrible. And again, I shared it. I shared it on social media because I thought, you know what? I haven't, again, probably talked about this as much as I should have. And I've always tried to put my very best version of myself on social media at all times. But that's maybe why I'm sitting here today trying to talk about this a little bit more openly, because that always trying to put my best foot forward, whilst I think is important, but always show that I think isn't as important. And I think it's always good. It's always good to be very, very, or it's healthier is probably the right language I should use, to be a lot more open and transparent about these things. And my mental health, specifically my depression, has been something that I have suffered with on and off since, I would probably say, since I was 16 years old. I'm now 32. And whilst I wasn't clinically diagnosed with depression until I was 21, there were things in my life at the age of 16 that I was going through and that I was feeling, that as an adult who was clinically diagnosed when he was 21 can look back on and say, that wasn't right, or that wasn't healthy, and that wasn't just a bad day. That wasn't just something that, by being a human being, that I was just going through. That was something a lot more. So my mental health and my depression has been something that I have struggled with for the last 16 years, maybe even before, but those are sort of my earliest memories of things that were happening in my life where I thought, oh shit, that's not just someone having a bad day, as it were. And I always found that a lot of my triggers for poor mental health were as a result, and I've talked about this before on previous episodes, were essentially a mismatch of expectations and the reality of my situation. Now, for anyone who knows me, if you've listened to a few episodes of my podcast, you will know that I've always been sort of very, very forward thinking. I've always had sorts of visions of grandeur. I've always thought best case scenario, biggest dreams. When it came to sport, when it came to life, when it came to anything I did, I was always thinking of sort of the very, very top, the pinnacle, as it were. And as a young man who sort of had the world at his feet, again, this is something that I've talked about in previous podcasts, I think I was well within my right to sort of think that way. And whilst as an adult who is a lot more established in life and lives a very, very good life, I must admit, I don't have the same triggers that I had when I was a young man. Now, that's not to say that I don't still have issues when it comes to sort of managing expectations against the reality of my situation, but this time around is very different in that I feel I feel very, very burnt out. I feel very tired. And for me, there's been a lot of, as much as I love what I do, there is not there there is not a doubt in my mind that helping people is something that is just is just my calling. It is. It's just I genuinely, heart of hearts, do not believe that there is a single person on this earth who is more capable of helping people than I am. And I know that there is. Of course there is. And the fact that there's so many people like this that exist is absolutely fucking phenomenal. But that's how sure I am that helping people really just is what I was literally born to do. So for me to be an online coach who helps women break free from diet culture and live a life free from scale weight and see the feelings that come along with that, there is just a zero doubt in my mind that that is literally what I am born to do. I live and breathe it. But with anything that you do consistently without any breaks, without any sort of breaking the routine or a holiday or something to look forward to, it gets very sort of it can get very stale. And that's kind of been where my mindset has been for the last probably the last 6 months. It's been very sort of here's this thing that I want to build and I want to develop because I know that wholeheartedly I believe in it and I believe it can help so many people that I feel run down. I feel very, very tired and I've not been looking after myself, to be honest. I've not. And as someone who sits here as an online fat loss and lifestyle transformation coach who helps people get these types of results, doing the things that I'm saying they should do, I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite, to be honest, and I feel like a little bit a little bit of an imposter. I am sorry, everyone. There might feel like there's a little bit of a gap there. Essentially, what happened is Raymond started shouting at me from the door because it is his D time. So here's me trying to talk about how I feel like I'm a bit of an imposter. I feel like a bit of a hypocrite, and here he is, bloody screaming at me from behind the door. So I do apologise if it feels like there's a little bit of a stop start there. Um, but yeah, I feel like what was I saying? I was talking about how I felt like a little bit of an imposter that as an online fat loss coach and lifestyle transformation coach, sorry, how what gives me the right to literally sit in front of people and talk about transforming their life when I feel the way that I feel when I'm not doing the things that I know help me manage my mental health, etc., etc. And then you combine that with the fact that because I am so deeply passionate about this, I know how it is that I'm feeling. I'm aware how it is that I'm feeling. You hold on to the things that you love doing that little bit harder, but you know that you're not showing up in the way that you should be showing up. And what that's done for me is that's created I suppose, a little bit of a vicious circle with how it is that I'm feeling. And again, this was something that I spoke about on social media. I went back to therapy about 8 months ago because at the time of when went back to therapy, I was feeling very, very similarly to how I felt now, and I knew that I needed to have some way of relieving how I felt so that I can continue to show up the way that I want to show up, in the way that I feel like I need to show up, in the way that I feel like the people that I get the fortune of working and helping with deserve for me to show up as well. So I suppose when I went back to therapy 8 months ago, I thought that that was me doing enough in order for me to have that escape, or that ability to alleviate how it is that I'm feeling right now. But obviously, with how it is that I'm feeling right now, feeling very, very burnt out and very tired, I do feel very low, still very much going to therapy, that what I have been doing is not enough. And I think that's why I've put it on social media. That's why I've come to the podcast to talk about it, because I obviously need to do more. And I accept that. And I accept that, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't accept that with a pinch of salt, because I've been here with my mental health before and it's annoying. But it's that annoyance and that feeling that I have about it that I'm highlighting and I'm talking about it, because I know that that's not healthy for me. In fact, it's very, very unhealthy. And if anything, it's slowed me down from managing this better than what I have done. Because before this point, sure, I've had bad days, maybe even bad weeks. But I probably haven't had a really bad bout of mental health for probably about 3 years. And last year, 2024, threw up a lot of challenges for me that, had I felt the way I feel now a year ago, I'd have really struggled. I would have really, I don't know how I would have managed or coped at that point, because I wasn't going to therapy at the time of when all those things were happening. Sorry. I wasn't I was still exercising, I was still showing up the best that I could. But I was still very, very focused on a lot of things, and relying on a lot of things that I'd relied on up until that point to help me manage how it was I was feeling at that time. So I think maybe even from 2024, as I sit here right now and feel the way that I feel, maybe I'm hungover from 2024. I, I, I don't know, but I know that I'm burnt out. I know that I'm tired, and I know that I don't want to feel the way that I'm feeling right now for any longer than I need to. And to be honest, when I came to recording this podcast, it's a Tuesday. Tuesday is podcast day. I knew that this was going to be something that I was going to talk about, and I wasn't really sure how it would go. And I still don't even really know how this has gone, or if it has made any sense, or I don't know. Because, again, I'm tired, I'm run down, my mind is a little bit of a clusterfuck at the moment. But I'm putting it out there, and as always, because my want to help and my passion for helping people has always been at the forefront of what I've done, I'm hoping that this reaches out to the right person at the time of when they need to hear it, and that it's okay to feel the way that you feel. And it's okay to feel your way through that process as well. And if there was one piece of advice that I could give that maybe I haven't been so good at following myself, which again might make me a little bit of a hypocrite by saying it, it's that give yourself space. Give yourself time to feel your way through it, because only at that point can you start to formulate a plan and action on it. And I think that's quite often something that I do too much of, but something that I don't think people do enough of, is action based on how they're feeling. They will wait until they feel better to action. But I think a lot more comes from actioning when you don't necessarily feel in the best place to action. But that comes from a foundation of giving yourself the space and the grace to be able to feel those feelings in abundance in the first place. And I want you to know that that's okay to feel that way. You have to feel that way. You're a human being. And I suppose by putting this out, that is what I am accepting that I am as well. Is I'm a human being, a thoughtful, caring, ambitious, driven, kind, generous human being who's just doing his best. And so, with that being said, there are a couple of things that I am starting to action in and do a little bit more of that have been that were staples in my life before that I'm hoping are going to give me a little bit more of a solid ground to step from and walk from. And again, this was something that I spoke about on my Instagram, but I'm starting to be a little bit more consistent with my creatine now, which is a supplement for those of you who have not heard, that's had proven benefits to cognition and mental health, in that it helps with brain fog, which essentially I suppose you could call overwhelm, and putting a slightly different spin on it. So I'm being a lot more consistent with my creatine now. I've started adding in more magnesium, which is to help my sleep, because sleep was definitely not something that I was getting enough of. I was stuck in that. I guess I was stuck in that hustle mentality where I think social media does a terrible job at this at making people think that, well, if you don't have enough time in the day, you need to get up earlier to chase it. And to be honest, that's just not me. That's not me. I've tried that and it's just not working. So again, giving myself the space and grace to be able to accept that I need a little bit more sleep is something that I'm trying, and I'm supplementing with magnesium to basically improve the quality of my sleep and my energy levels as well. I've also added in a vitamin D there. And Kim and me are also taking a break. Tomorrow we are going to Fairmont for a night, just because we're both busting our asses off with our businesses. Just, it's all work, zero play at the moment. So we're inserting a circuit breaker there, shall we say, just to fill the cups back up. So yeah, I'm gonna be more consistent with these things than I ever have done before. Journaling is also something else that I've added in. I always find journaling one of those where I find it a bit fluffy, to be honest. And I suppose the reason I find it a bit fluffy is because I've just not made the time to do it consistently to see the benefits from doing it. However, when I have done it, I have felt instantly better, because I am someone whose thought processes are always, my mind is always going. I'm very much a chronic overthinker. Hi, Raymond. Hi, bud. Raymond's here. You might see him on the video. He might jump up. But yeah, I am a chronic overthinker. And if if we're talking dieting, if we're talking calories, the amount of calories I must burn from overthinking is absolutely bonkers. So having that opportunity to be able to write my thoughts and feelings down has been really helpful when I've done it. So I've slotted that back in and being a little bit more consistent with that. So I will definitely let you all know how I'm feeling. I'm going to be keeping up with it on Instagram. So be sure to check down below to follow me there, follow my journey with my mental health. I want to just finish by saying that I am okay. and maybe this isn't helpful either because I'm very much the sort of person who maybe feels a certain way but says, oh, but I'm okay, as if I've always got the answers. I quite clearly don't, but I am. Thank you, bud. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, bud. Um, I'm not okay, but I am okay, if that makes sense. I am working through this. I am doing it in the healthiest way I know how, and I am doing things differently to how I would normally. I am acknowledging how I feel. I'm accepting that I'm a human being, and I'm giving myself the space and the grace to be able to feel my way through it. And again, if you're someone who feels very, very similarly to how I am, or if you're feeling a certain way, please just, even if you just want to send me a message to say that you've listened to the podcast and you're happy to hear that you're not alone, or that you're feeling a certain way, I think it's going to be very, very important for us to, hey, bud, to start opening the doors to these things a lot more. And that's definitely going to be something that I'm going to try to do. That I'm going to try to do a lot more of. So, yeah, like I said, be sure to catch me on Instagram. I'm going to be updating people as often as I can, and yeah, I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you very much for listening.